Hello, everyone. Dr. Lisa Faast here, and I have got one of my newest favorite products that I think pharmacies should be selling. We're going to be talking about today. So I have Dan Nichols with me from CofixRx. Now, that is probably maybe a name that you haven't heard of, but I'm very excited to be bringing it to you because, as I said, I think pharmacies should be having this right by their counter, impromptu types of purchases, but also those kind of deeper educational purposes of talking with your patients about trying to protect their health and promote wellness. So Dan, welcome to Pharmacy Badass. I am excited to talk about this product. I've been using it myself for probably 3 months now, I think, from when I got it. I first purchased it at my friend, Dr. Jessica Mills' pharmacy up in Kentucky, and I've been using it ever since. So tell us a little bit kind of about the company, CofixRx. What is the product? Give us the nuts and bolts and the essentials of it.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me on Pharmacy Badass. And that is a badass title. I love the name of that, Pharmacy Badass. I'm sorry, you just wanted the basics of the product? Is that what
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about it. Like a lot of people haven't even heard of it. I got my little bottle right here.
Yeah. So the big secret, which I didn't know this a year ago when I started working for CofixRx here. We're based out just north of Detroit, by the way. But was that surgeons for years and people in the medical industry have been swabbing their noses with iodine prior to, say, a surgery and things like that. And people I didn't know that as a general public. I didn't know that people did that. And but what we did is we just kind of perfected that. And that's because the doctor that actually initially started with the invention, the concocting the formula, he had done like 30 years prior, had done a paper, like one of his papers that he had done. I don't want to screw that up. I want to say a thesis, but I don't think it was a thesis. But he had done like a research paper, I think is what it was, and showing how using povidone iodine when swabbed in the nose took staph infections not to 1 or 2 to 0%. Nobody, when they swabbed the nose with iodine, and he remembered that, and his daughter, an ER doctor in New York City, right in the epicenter of COVID. Back 2 years back now. I'm getting confused as to what years those all started.
I know, it's a blur.
Complete blur. But when that all went down that March, he was worried about her. And him and his wife, both doctors, and then his daughter, also a doctor, he was concerned about her, and he thought about that study, that research that he had done, and he started going to work on a formula. Fast forward a year later, we were to market with the product. He brought it to an entrepreneur, my CEO, Dennis Kaiser, and brought it to him. And in conjunction with a compounding pharmacist, they worked out a formula that made it actually hang in the nasopharynx. And that's a big deal. That's the big differentiator here, Lisa, is that this product it's not just iodine up your nose, which, by the way, in and of itself is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because it does knock out viruses. This is the beginning of our intestines, right? This arrow track here. It's kind of the beginning of all that. And this part is where a lot of the germs and bacteria harbor here in the front end. And it's a simple idea to what had become a pretty ugly, complex problem. Can we knock down viruses? Can we reduce viral loads? Can we reduce the viral burden on the body? And the answer is, sure we can. We absolutely can. This product in particular, we don't have a clinical on it yet, but there are more studies than I can even begin to tell. They're all over the web. Just Google povidone iodine nasal spray study, clinical trial. You'll see them. And as Dr. Ravi said so well, how many more chickens and rabbits do we have to kill to prove that this is efficacious? So that's kind of the quick story on it, sort of quick.
Yeah, and so you can see right there on the box, and for those of you that are listening that can't see the box, it talks about SARS, COVID, right there. So I know that when the pandemic first started and lots of people started making all kinds of products and, talking about sanitizing and disinfecting, the FDA, the FTC, every acronym government, came down really hard on products about claiming to be effective for SARS. So tell me a little bit how you guys got that label on the box that says it's thumbs up for SARS.
Well, the way we did was we submitted for our national drug code and we got it with this box. But what you pharmacists know, I think, is that it's one thing to get something approved, and that doesn't mean you won't have backlash later, right? So then because the FDA doesn't look necessarily with a microscope at every little thing. Our claims that we had were in vitro. So we know what it did and how efficacious it was in the lab. Utah State University's Institute for Antiviral Research. In fact, we just did another run with Omicron and some other variant. I'm losing track. And same thing, it destroyed 99% of the coronavirus, Omicron's Delta, I think was the other one, and in under 45 seconds. But I will tell you though that we are changing this box. We got a letter, it's like a rite of passage. We got a letter and we respected that, and we are going through the process right now of changing the box. Right now, this is what we have left over in inventory. And a lot of this will be going all over the world actually very soon. So yeah, we're going to be changing this to a more of an immune support play probably, just because it's fewer. This right now is an OTC, the active ingredient being povidone iodine. So, but we've got to play that properly and respect that, because that's how you stay in business.
Yep, absolutely. And really, it's not just a COVID product. Honestly, it's effective. I mean, those of us in the medical industry, we know, like you said, before surgeries, you get the swab of the iodine, and iodine is effective against lots of things. And so it kills other bacteria, other fungi, other viruses, and things like that. And so your nasal passage, like you said, that is the entrance. Most people think it's like the mouth, but you don't realize how much you breathe in and out of your nose, and that your nasal passages and your sinuses are, where a lot of things start in there. So how does a typical patient use this? What is the protocol if they're not sick, if they are sick? Like, is there a difference on how you take it?
So, we have to be careful as a company. And I think you can imagine that any pharmacist will understand that, it says right on the top of our box, and we've even updated this, but it says not intended to be a substitute for vaccines or other approved therapeutics. We don't sell it as a therapy. We don't sell it as a 1000% silver bullet protection. It's simply an additional layer of protection. What I know from selling this for the last year is that you hand this to a pharmacist or a doctor, the first thing they do is they flip it over and they look at the ingredients. And this is the aha moment that I love so much. It just still gives me goosebumps to think about it, is that they look at the box and they go, and then they look back and go, I wish I had thought of this. It's povidone iodine. I mean, I'm not going to say it here on your podcast.
I might have done that myself.
Yeah, like, Tara, why didn't I think of that? And what's slick about our product too is that the carrageenan is the mucosal adhesive that has it sticking, right? And we use a pharmaceutical grade carrageenan. That's very important because I'm a foodie myself. I worry about what I eat, what I put into my body. And I've gone round and round, even with pharmacists, on this whole thing. It's a pharmaceutical grade carrageenan. The really bad rap was degraded carrageenan. There doesn't seem to be any specific information that says that the carrageenan itself that's in the product as a pharmaceutical grade has any ill effects, or, and the amount is so like infinitesimally small. It's like a grain of sand relative to a whole giant, fist in size, the amount that you're actually getting. But and here's the other thing. The carrageenan, and it's not our active ingredient, so I'm being very careful that we use it as a mucosal adhesive, but it's interesting. In Europe, there's betadine with carragulose. Carragulose is the patented molecule betadine, which is just carrageenan, because they use it as a virucidal, because it's a sugar decoy and actually covers these protein spikes, in theory, So anyway, it's fascinating. I love the science of it. So
as a patient and using it, so the way that I use it, it sits on my, little dresser in my room, and just in the morning, either after I shower, just I'm getting dressed, I just do one squirt in each nostril every morning. And that's just kind of my routine. And I put it away. I will say about half the time, about 90 seconds later, I sneeze, like just what I do.
I do too. Yeah.
It's just a little sneeze. And, I think when people think iodine, they think like, ooh, dark yellow, orange, like, do you have orange coming out all over you? It's like, no, it's like you said, it's just a spray, and it's a very fine mist. So it's like, and I think adhesive, like it sticks. Like I've never had a drip. I've never had like with Afrin or something, you spray and then you immediately get like it dripping out. This doesn't do that. It sprays, it goes right up in the nose, and I go about my day. And sometimes I sneeze about 90 seconds later, and that's pretty much it. And that's what I do. So,
well, are you familiar with Dr. McCullough, Peter McCullough?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was sharing recently, actually about 2 weeks ago, he was sharing in his podcast that his wife had gotten some bug of some kind, and he had her using it therapeutically to knock it out. And he said, I'm telling you, he goes, I'm telling you, Dan, within, he shared it with us, our company. He said, we used your Cofix and within a matter of a couple of days, it was gone. A day and a half, 2 days later, he talked about it on his podcast, actually, the McCullough Report, and gave props to the Cofix as knocking it out because he gets it. I can't sell it as a therapy and don't intend to, but there are people that are using it like that. There's doctors saying, look, you get a viral bug, you get something going on, bam, bam, get it up there, at least reduce the viral burden.
Yeah, at least reduce that. So, the reason I think that this product is so good for pharmacies is, one, we've got to be pivoting as pharmacy owners to more cash-based revenue. I have been shouting this from the rooftops, but even right now with our inflationary pressures, everything is going up, but our reimbursements are not. PBMs don't automatically adjust their reimbursement rates for inflation, and so our profits are being eroded even more just because we're having to pay more for our vials, our labels, everything else is costing us more. And so you've got to pivot to have revenue that you can control, where you can control the profit, you can control the pricing, which obviously you can't do with the PBM. And so it may seem kind of minuscule to be talking about a single product, but it's really the whole entire puzzle that you're building in your pharmacy, is having lots of these little cornerstone products that serve a great purpose. People now are more concerned about their health and wellness. They want to keep we talk about probiotics, we talk about gut health, we talk about so many things that just help keep us operating at our highest peak efficiency, if you will, as humans. And I think this is one of those products that, whether you're into functional medicine or whether you're just a regular retail independent pharmacy, like, I think this has a place on your countertop, and your employees to talk about it in terms of just helping your patients operate at their peak opportunity. And this is cash-based revenue, no PBMs, no nothing like that involved. And I think more pharmacies need to be pivoting to products like this. I can tell you that when I went to Jessica's pharmacy, I went there for one of her evaluations, and I got my whole list. I saw it and I was like, oh, I've been looking for it, because I had been hearing about the product. I didn't know a whole lot about it. And I did the exact same thing that you said. I turned it over and I was like, iodine, of course. And promptly picked up 4 boxes. It's not expensive. And I wanted my stash because I didn't know I was going to get back to Kentucky. And I didn't know if any pharmacies around me were carrying it. And so this is something that, my whole family, all the kids come in, we have all our little bottles, and, they do the little squirts, and, some days we miss, that's okay. You're running late, whatnot. But I just think as a mom with the kids, it's like, I just try to keep it up as much as possible. Like you said, just reduce the burden of all the junk in there. I think is always beneficial. And so, when you've been selling this for the last year to pharmacies, and so you've worked with a ton, some who have done amazingly well, who have sold a ton of it, and then others that didn't seem to do so well and they didn't sell some. So can you talk to me a little bit, because obviously we're here all about helping pharmacies improve their profitability. So what are some of those secrets that you can give us that the successful pharmacies did in order to sell more of it?
Yeah, Lisa, I love that you share with pharmacists some of these kind of grassroots, like basic stuff, right? Like people, like, you got to sell. Like, I mean, it's a sales job. I mean, I have a pharmacist here locally that I go to, and she goes, how have you been feeling? She'll ask questions, I feel like I'm at the doctor's, and then she'll sell me more product based on my answers. Like, you might need this gut health, or you might need this. So we know that, right? Like, you got to be willing to do that. And I think the companies, the pharmacies that struggle, I think it could also be a location. I think that, as I've learned, right, that can be a big deal. But I'm going to tell you really quickly, I think the fastest way to get through this is to tell you a quick story. One time I had a chain of 40 pharmacies here in Michigan. And I initially walked in, and within 2 hours sold the whole entire chain, because the CEO got back to me like, yeah, we want that. That's great. And then about 2 months passed by and they didn't reorder. And I thought, well, that's weird, like, what's going on? And I had to know, this was early on. This was still trying to figure the whole game out. And I just took a sample of 10 pharmacies, and I called 10. And I said, hey, how's your CofixRx stock doing? And they said to me, that's not what I said. I said, do you sell CofixRx, a nasal spray? And they said to me, like, so they said one of two things. Absolutely, I love it. Oh my gosh, it's the greatest. Or, I'm not sure. Hang on a second. To a T, absolutely positive, 100%. I'm not making any of this up. The ones that weren't sure they had it still had plenty of inventory. Absolutely, I've got it. It's right here on the counter because they all put it on their front counter because it's a hot seller like that. In the height of this craziness, I had pharmacies that would sell 100 bottles, not a week, a day, day. People come in and buy 12 packs for their families. This is a party. People come in and they buy a whole, party pack. And we have a full retail display, but they'll buy they'll just come in and take a 12 pack right off the top of that. They buy it for their friends and family. They're going to Thanksgiving. Everybody gets a bottle. They got a wedding coming up. Everybody gets a bottle. So I will tell you that the ones that knew they had it and talked about it, they were the ones that were saying, yeah, I don't know why the company hasn't reordered any for me. Like, we need more. I've been out of it for 3 weeks. And that was that. And then another thing that I noticed critical. So that would be it. Do your people even know about the stuff on the front counter? Yeah. I mean, do they? And I think that's a big deal. And I'm certain you talk about this.
No, that's a big thing, is any new product like this that you bring in, if you just have a vitamin C sitting on the counter, you don't need to have a team meeting for that. But I think for a boutique niche product like this that you really want to push, you need to tell your team, whether you type it up, whether you host a meeting, you have a phone call, whatever that communication standard is in your pharmacy, you've got to get that information in the hands of your employee. Your customers should never know more than your employees. Like they shouldn't be asking for things and your employees not know it. And so that's a very important point, but employee engagement and employee education is very critical.
Yep. And the thing, pharmacies are hands down, I figured out, the busiest people on the planet. So, and I feel for you guys and I understand, but that education piece is going to go so big to help you, as you said, sell things with higher markups. I mean, a bottle of Tylenol, you're going to make 25% on the thing, if that.
If maybe.
Yeah, right. I think I actually read something you wrote about that. That's why I said I didn't know that. It was like $6 you sell it for, and you get $1.25 or something.
Yeah,
it was some fast math. I don't know, but anyway. So another one too is just something as simple as bag stuffers. I remember when we first started getting requests for them, I was kind of laughing inside because I'm like, I'm not a young guy, but I'm young enough to be part of this digital age thing, right? And I'm like, what do you mean bag stuffers? Like, people actually really, I feel like I'm in an old school country shop. But no, the people that are calling and reordering bag stuffers are the same people that are calling and reordering our product, because they stick these things in the bags and people get home, they're like, oh, wow, a nasal spray. Oh, wow. They want it. They come back in and they place an online order with that pharmacist.
Bag stuffers is one of my favorite marketing techniques for pharmacies. So I talk about bag stuffers all the time. And so I'm glad that you guys have one, because that means I don't have to go and create one that tells about the product and all of that. But no, bag stuffer is one of the best, low cost and highly effective, because you're absolutely right. Pharmacies have such an advantage over other brick and mortar companies. You have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 patients coming in your pharmacy every month after month after month. And generally speaking, pharmacies have a lot of goodwill with those patients. They trust you. Yeah. They like you. You talk about your kids, you serve on the church board together, whatever those kinds of things like. And so when you recommend a product, and this is why I'm on such a mission to try to help pharmacy owners understand products out there like this exist, because when you as a pharmacist, probably like me, look at it, you look at the label, you use it yourself, and you're like, I love this stuff. Now people are trusting you and you're making a recommendation based off your professional judgment and their trust and relationship with you. And so you really can turn these quite frequently. Like you said, a lot of people come in, it's not an expensive product. They buy multiple products. We like to keep one in our car. We keep one, at our normal kind of getting dressed time, when everybody does it in the morning, but we keep it in lots of different places because we travel a lot. We have the kids, we go around. It's like, as soon as something happens, we up it up. I don't know if you're supposed to, but hey, iodine, we're good. We all usually need some iodine anyways. And so it just feels good to like be doing something that's, good for your general health. So if somebody's interested in buying this, if they're a pharmacy owner and they're looking at this, what is the best way to get in contact with you to be able to purchase Cofix for their pharmacy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could call us at 855-88-COFIX, which is a way just to call our customer service. And please tell us that you found us here with your show, Pharmacy Badass. I love that name. And but really, there's a link if you want to buy the product. I believe it'll be in the show notes. And those are the two different ways. I mean, definitely. And please make sure, again, like I said, mention the Pharmacy Badass Show or whatever, however, if you've got a code there, Lisa. But one other quick thing too, it's got vitamin D3 in it too for immune support. So that was something we also felt was important as well.
Yes, love, big vitamin D fan from my functional medicine junkie side of myself. Yeah. So if you're a pharmacy and you're looking for some cash-based revenues, you want to get your toes wet in the supplement world. There's a lot of supplements out there. Some of my favorites that I love to recommend. Cofix is definitely one of them. This is a lower price point than maybe some of the other ones. So it's maybe a good way to kind of start training your staff, start getting your patients used to being recommended, because if you've never recommended anything, it can be a little bit awkward. And so you kind of have to practice and get that out. So this, I think, can be a great product. Almost kind of sells itself. I love your guys' packaging. I love the bag stuffer. And so I think this is a really great first product to really get it in before maybe you try branching out into other supplements. And the thing I like about this is people are going to continue to use it. It's not something that you just take and like fix something and then you move on. It's something that's continually used. So your patients will come back and give you kind of that recurring revenue that I'm such a fan of. So thank you, Dan, for spending some time with us, telling us about Cofix. I hope our listeners and watchers have learned something. And yes, we will put all of Dan's information down below, put the links, the phone numbers, and everything you need. Feel free to reach out and ask me any questions. Call Dan and his team and ask them any questions. And I hope you can start to increase your cash-based revenue with Cofix. So thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you. Good luck, guys. Thanks.